Hi, for USCFsales.com, I'm Steve Lopez with the ChessBase 11 tip for you. Weird part about this video is it doesn't actually involve ChessBase 11. This is a tip where we're going to be looking at Fritz 12 as you see on the screen here. You can also do this with Ribka 4, Hierarchs 13, any of the current chess programs that ChessBase offers. What we did in our last video was create an opening book. We had a database of games of the Caro-Kann Advance variation and turned them into an opening book. I promised you I'd show you something you could do with it, something else you could do with it this week besides just look at it in ChessBase. You can open it up in Fritz and use it as an opening book. Basically, I'm studying the black side of the Caro-Kann Advance variation. I'd like to practice what I learn against the computer. By creating an opening book on nothing but the Caro-Kann Advance, I can actually force Fritz into playing nothing but this opening. I'll show you how to do it. If you look over here and click on Openings Book in the notation pane, you'll see that fritz12.ctg is the opening book I currently have loaded. You might be able to see right under the tree here it says fritz12.ctg in fairly small letters. We want to load the opening book we created in the last video, and this is why I told you you need to know what folder you saved it into. You need to know it in this step. Go to the application menu, that's this button in the upper left corner of the screen, and click on it. Go to Open, and then Openings Book. And if, as I did, you save it into the default folder, My Documents ChessBase Books, you'll see it there, CK Defense. That's the book we created last week in the last video. So we click on it and click New Open, or we can just double click on it to open it. And look here, ckdefense.ctg, and here are the opening moves. Notice, by the way, it's interesting to notice right away that there are transpositional possibilities here. There are games in this database where the white player started with d4, but through the next few moves, it transposes into the position of the Caro-Kann Advance after white plays e4 to e5 and black plays bishop f5. If I want to practice this opening against Fritz from the black side, all I have to do is hit Control F on the keyboard to flip the board, and whenever I'm ready to start the game, which I will not do here, but whenever I want to start the game, I just hit the space bar to make Fritz move as white. And I can just play the game. Now the other thing I wanted to show you was the statistical functions in an opening tree. In ChessBase, you get one set of statistics in through performance. This other stuff over here only appears in Fritz. I'm going to touch on this very quickly, which is very simply, there's a weighting factor for the moves. You can find out about that in the help file. What I really want to talk about is the prob percentage. What this means is, this is the percentage chance that Fritz will play a given move when you're playing against it. So if I start a game at this point, there's about a 96% chance that Fritz is going to play 1e4 and about a 4% chance that it's going to play 1d4. That's all this means. But in ChessBase, what you'll see is this string right here. Number of games, success percentage, the average rating of the players who played it, and their performance rating. Very simply, N means the number of games. E4 was played in 6,611 games, D4 was played in 48 games. The percentage is always given from the side of white as long as you have a particular function checked, which is result from white side. If you have that checked, the number is always given from the white side. If you don't have that checked, it'll give it from the moving side. I have it selected for the white side. That helps prevent confusion for me. If you have that selected, the higher the percentage, the better a move was for white. The lower the percentage, the better the move was for black. It's that simple. This move is a little bit better for white than for black. 1e4 scores about 54%. 1d4 does a little bit better for white, but there's not a ton of games. There's only 48 games. It's not a huge statistical sampling. But that just basically tells you how successful the move was for white or black. That's what that number is. And again, if you have, under properties, if you have result from white side selected, the higher the number, the better for white. The lower the number, the better for black. Slightly better for white, 54%. Average is the average rating of the players who made that move, based on the games in the database from which this tree was created. Please note that if now they may have tweaked this, they do change it from time to time, but when last I checked, if a game was in the database and did not have ratings for the players in the game header, it assumed a 2200 rating for each player. They may have changed it. There was one time I believe they may have knocked it down to 1800. I'm not sure what the current standard is, but games without a rating do get factored in using a particular default number. Performance rating, basically if a player rated 2162 played these 6,000 games, at the end of those 6,611 games, he would have done well enough that his rating would have gone up to 2177. Basically, if you see the performance rating being higher than the average rating, you know that that move did well for that side. If the number is lower, you know that the move didn't do very well. We can jump forward through the game by using the cursor keys on the keyboard. I have a game loaded, which is why it's asking me for new variation. E5, of course. And then we see that bishop f5, there's a c5 move that does transpose. Because it was in actually it doesn't transpose, but it was in a comment. That's why it says 0 games. It was actually part of a variation that one of the annotators put into the games. This is what I was talking about last week when I said you have to decide whether you want annotations or not, because you do occasionally get unrelated games. There's an example. This wasn't a transposition. I misspoke what it is because it's 0 for the number. That was actually part of a comment, a variation that an annotator put into one of the games. We see bishop f5 actually does a little bit better for white than for black, 54%. And then we can see black's replies by stepping forward one more move, and we have a scrolling list where we can go up and down a list and look at different replies. And there's a whole passel of them. Black has a lot of things he can do here, but knight f3, or I'm sorry, white has a lot of things he can do here. Knight f3 is the one that's played the most often. Notice that they're listed in order of number. 2,311 games, does pretty well for white. Other moves, like knight d2, do pretty well for, real well for white. As you scroll down a list, other things that may not be as good may have better percentages for black, like a 48.1 for bishop e2. So you can just go through the list and look at percentages. This is a little easier to do in ChessBase than in Fritz, but what you do get in Fritz that you don't get in ChessBase is the probability percentage that Fritz will play a particular move. Out of all these moves listed, Fritz will play the expected move, or the move that's played the most often, 27% of the time. There are some other choices here. And this is why we made an opening book, because when we get to this point, our defining position of the Caro-Kann defense, there's a whole bunch of different moves that white can play here. And I'm practicing it from the black side. That's why I flipped the board. This gives me the opportunity to play against a lot of different options that Fritz will pull out of this opening book. And the game will continue, by the way, until I leave until 12 moves are played. You remember that we created a book that was 12 moves long. Or if I make a move that is not in the book, for example, if knight f3 is played, and I make a move that is not one of these black moves, I'll know it because Fritz will immediately start thinking. This will spring to life down here, the engine pane, and show me that Fritz is thinking, and I'll know that I played a move that was not a book move. That's how you can tell. Fritz will always stay in book until either you run out of book moves or you make a move that is not in the opening book. But that's how you load an opening book in Fritz, an opening book that you created. We did it in the last video. Go back and watch it if you haven't done so yet. And here's how you load it, and here's how you look at the statistics, what the different columns mean. Until next time, for USCFsales.com, I'm Steve Lopez. Thank you for watching.